Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 43 of The Pond. My name is Colton Pegana, and guys, we've had a crazy week. It's been a whirlwind of, I don't know, just a little bit of everything. We got some ups, some downs. A lot of teams starting to clinch the playoff berths as we're moving towards the last couple games. But first things first, we got to check in with the boys and say hi. Mike, how you doing, brother?
Chilling hard, my dude.
Yeah. What are we drinking here, boys? What are we drinking?
Today I got a dark lager from Sleeman.
Jeez. Okay. Wow. Dark lager. Wow.
I've been making my way through a 2-4 of it this week, and definitely enjoying it.
Yeah. For sure.
I decided to hold off on the Carlsbergs. I got some Carlsbergs on deck. I got some Coronas on deck, but waiting for the nice weather for the Ronas as always. So
Yeah. It feels wrong to drink it when it's when it's cold, you know. So, and then Kurt, I recently I think I got him onto the bubblies. He's been loving it, buddy. Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm on my third 12-pack of bubblies in the last maybe 2 weeks.
I'm a fiend for that shit. Like pop, I will just drink nonstop if it's there.
Yeah. Especially
It's nice because it's just carbonated water, so it's like, you know,
you're
justifying.
Buddy, you're getting hydrated, right? It's good times. But yeah, I'm actually drinking a little bit of a Bud Light seltzer. I saw this in the LCBO and I thought I'd pick it up, and I'm drinking the strawberry one. It's all right. But yeah, you know, it's seltzer season, boys. Gotta shed the pounds. Gotta get out there. I mean, you can't be walking onto the beach with a bunch of people socially distancing and looking like a beach ball. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah. Right as we're getting in shape for prime time later this year, so are the NHL teams. We got a lot of teams playing some really intense hockey, which kind of leads us into our first story here of two teams just clashing. And well, if you haven't heard about this story yet, it's
rock.
Yeah, seriously, it's kind of crazy. Mike, take it away, buddy.
I mean, if you haven't seen the video, definitely go check it out. But the kind of news around the NHL, it's been 2 days. This is the third day or second day since it happened. I guess it would have been Monday night, Rangers Capitals game. Tom Wilson, wires crossed like I have never seen wires crossed before.
Yeah.
Net front scrum. Buchnevich goes down, like kind of in the crease. Just gets knocked down, really. Wilson jumps on him. Buchnevich is face down on the ice. Wilson gives him a couple pumps to the back of the head. Panarin, a couple other Rangers come in, jump on top, try, a scrum ensues. And Wilson gets up. Panarin's helmet's off, grabs him from behind, pulls him down a second time. Hits his head into the ice a couple times, no helmet. Panarin had left the game. He's now out for the season. Wilson got a 10-minute misconduct and 2 minor penalties for it, 14 total penalty minutes. And given his record, obviously Tom Wilson is no stranger to suspensions. People were kind of saying, this crossed a line. Not really a hockey play. All happened after the whistle. Going after a defenseless player, never mind a player without his helmet on, intent to injure. Like, people are saying throw the book at him. He should be out for the season. $5,000 fine. Doesn't get a hearing. No suspension.
Yeah.
So
unbelievable.
Yeah. So that's been met with outrage. I mean, I've seen a couple people defending it, not too many. You have people like John Scott, who's one of the old, classic enforcers, one of the last enforcers that was left in the league, coming out basically saying this crossed the line. Now anything goes, in those scrums. If you're not going to suspend that, what are you going to suspend? Even Matt Cook, certified cheap shot artist, comes out saying, "You look like this is not a hockey play." Because I guess with bad hits, bad hits are bad hits, but that sort of thing is going to happen in the game of hockey. This was something completely different, and really shocking that he didn't get suspended for this. And I mean, we can get into the other details, but Shane Gostisbehere somehow does get suspended for something which probably also is suspendable, but likely I don't think as bad, especially considering he's not a repeat offender. But Rangers coming out with a statement saying they're calling for George Peros, or whatever his first name is, Peros.
Yes, George.
George Peros, yeah.
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it.
Calling him to get fired. And then the Rangers owner pulls the trigger and fires the GM and president today. He said, it's a performance-based decision, and this is something we can get into. But supposedly behind the scenes, the president and GM were trying to distance themselves from the statement the Rangers released. And the owner didn't appreciate that and cut ties. So Chris Drury is now the Rangers GM and president, which might be a good decision, but we got to get back to the Tom Wilson stuff, because I thought like this is pretty unanimous reaction. Kind of everybody is condemning this. Like, this was not even a hockey play that there is like a defensible stance on. It's just, this is dirty. This is a guy that has done this over and over and over again. Kind of has to be a suspension. And then he didn't get suspended. I was like, am I crazy?
Yeah.
Everyone I've talked to is kind of in the same boat, and I'm curious to get your guys' takes on it.
Yeah, man. Like, just watching that, I didn't watch it live, but seeing the replay, and like when there's a 7-minute replay and 5 minutes of it is Tom Wilson just being a goon.
Yeah.
And for how many times that we've seen this in the past, it just infuriates you as a hockey fan when that can be your star player, like Panarin, just get injured. And I mean, yeah, the Rangers probably aren't going to make the playoffs now because they kind of came on a little bit too late. But I mean, if this was McDavid or Cale Makar or any of these top elite talents, like, you're probably going to see like it, because it's Buchnevich. It seems like they treated it like a different scenario, and all hockey players should be treated the same way. Like, it is equality. Like, you're protecting the players. This is about teams too. Like, I don't know. It's just it's infuriating to see Tom Wilson just do this continuously and just kind of get slapped on the hand with these fines. And I think there's a big issue that they should find these players too. If you're not going to get suspended, it should be a salary cap, like whatever you make for that year, it should be percentage. Yeah. Cause like you look at McDavid when he elbowed Kotkaniemi, he got fined $5,000. Like, it's not really a deterrent for these guys.
Well, okay. The two plays are not comparable.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just, it seems like they're really not out to protect the players. And that's literally what the department is called, player and safety. And, if that was on job sites or construction or anything like that, that would be taken very seriously. And then this is pretty much the exact same way. You're just playing a sport for a living. So it's just really, it's kind of just disgusting to see. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really sad, honestly. Like, I know the Rangers, well, a decent amount of the staff has gotten in trouble for backing that statement that they put out on Twitter. And I don't know, like, it's essentially, just them standing up for what happened, which I think is honestly the right thing to do, because if no team ever really wants to go against the league, and especially against the Department of Player Safety. So if somebody's going to do it, you got to start, with a situation like this. Like, this is kind of, the perfect example of something that, okay, where is the consistency in the calls? Like, we've been talking about for a few episodes now how the reffing has been really shoddy, right? And so now these calls have been no different. Like, Tom Wilson's going to keep doing this stuff over and over again. Like,
the problem is, like, the reffing in the game, like a 10-minute misconduct, 2 minor penalties, that's pretty
heavy.
Yeah. They kind of threw the in-game book at him, right?
Yeah, I think they did well in the game for how they dealt with it. It was just the post game, everything just fell apart. Like, George Peros doesn't have a brain cell left.
It's CTE, baby. But no, I mean, and we were texting about it in the group chat. I was saying, look, like, the only explanation I could possibly think of is that they knew if they suspended him, given the fact that he's already been suspended 7 games literally a month ago and is a repeat offender by the definition of having been suspended, I think it's what, in the last 2 seasons. And he's been suspended multiple times in that time, right? So the only thing I can think of is they're sitting there thinking, okay, if we suspend him, it'll have to be fat. Like, we can't, for something like this, once you go to the suspension, you can't suspend him 2 games for that.
No.
You know, in-person hearing, once you suspend him, like it's got to be more than the 7 games he got before. And then he's missing playoff time. How do you kind of negotiate that? So maybe they just decided that's not worth it. We're just not going to suspend him at all. And that's a really awful, like, that's bad because that's
terrible,
right? But then I think what has kind of confirmed my assumption there is, you look at the Gostisbehere suspension. Gostisbehere's been suspended 2 games, and don't get me wrong, suspension worthy. I'm not sure who it was, but someone on Pittsburgh in on a breakaway on an empty net, end of the game, puts the puck in the empty net, and as he's wheeling away to Selly, Gostisbehere gets him with a cross check in the back. Luckily, didn't get him hard enough to like put him into the boards and seriously injure him, but the intent was clearly there.
Yeah.
So you look at a two game suspension for that, for someone that is not a repeat offender, and it seems incomparable. It's like, if that's 2 games, whatever Tom Wilson did has to be more. The only difference is that Shane Gostisbehere has already been eliminated from the playoffs. So any suspension you give him is essentially irrelevant,
right,
in terms of how it impacts the team and the standings. And that's the only really thing I can draw to in terms of how to explain the lack of a suspension here.
Yeah.
And that's just brutal. I mean, that's not how player safety should be run.
Yeah, I think something that really irritated me when this all went down was just looking into the stats. And like, you can think about it all you want. I know there's people that think that the game has gotten a lot softer nowadays, but in a way, yes, it has, because people, this is their careers, and the game is not like it once was. It is a lot taken very seriously now. And some of these injuries that these guys sustain could ruin their careers. So I think it's totally justified that the way that the game is kind of catered to just being skill and kind of taken away from those enforcers and everything has been good. But I think what really irritated me was George Peros. I read an article about how he was part of this clothing brand called Violent Gentleman Hockey Club, and how in 2016, when he was the first on for player safety and everything, he came out with a clothing line on his stuff. And think about it whatever way you want, but he was selling hats that were on the hat. It was like basically like Trump, like a red hat in the same font and everything, said, "Make hockey violent again." And to me, it just seems like he's trying to make the game like how he played it. And I just don't think that's right at all. Like, you're not looking out for these guys at all. Like, it just seems really scummy to me. So I just didn't like it. And honestly, I've never been a big fan of George Peros, even when he was a duster in the NHL. So fuck you, buddy.
Make a good point too, that like, you can say the game's gotten softer, and yeah, it has, but look at how much money is involved,
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Look at the contracts. Look how much money the owners were taking home. It's cents on the dollar to what they're doing today, right? You look at the whole negotiations around the Olympics. The big thing is who's going to pay the insurance for the NHL players to go, because their whole thing is like, look, like, if our star player goes midseason, gets injured, not only are we paying this guy big bucks, but that's going to impact our team's ability to succeed in the regular season, in the playoffs. It's going to impact ticket sales, blah, 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 whatever. Maybe you should consider protecting those same star players while they're playing in your league, right? It's the exact same principle.
Yep.
And one of the things that I think not a lot of people have talked about is, the NHL have they just settled? I'm not 100% sure what the current state of the court case is, but there's that huge CTE lawsuit, right?
Oh yeah, true.
And you have to assume that's not the last lawsuit of that sort that the NHL will be involved in. And if you're the NHL 5-10 years from now, trying to defend yourself in a lawsuit against these players that are playing in today's NHL 10 years from now, suing them, and you're trying to say, look, we did everything we could to protect you, you literally just show them a highlight reel of Tom Wilson plays. And you say, this wasn't even a suspension or a fine. Like, you can go back. CBC did like a 3-minute video where they were like the 9 worst Tom Wilson hits. And they had 12 in the intro because they were like, yeah, these 12 we couldn't fit in. And like, this is a guy that literally, like, Aston Reese in the playoffs, was it last year, 2 years ago? Broke the dude's jaw.
Yeah.
With, like, that's as dirt, like, you know, you clearly made principal contact with the guy's face. Like, and it's kind of sickening, man. Like, I'm not one to like say get rid of hitting, get rid of those scrums, get rid of fighting, but this is on another level, dude. And he needs to be checked, I would say.
Yeah. It's and the only excuse or the only reason that people have to be against, having Tom Wilson get suspensions are those guys that have played or played hockey like years ago that are saying, oh, well, that's exactly how the game was. Like, yeah. Okay, well, not the same game, so that excuse or that reason's automatically out. Like you said, these are people that they have lives, they are making a lot of money, and they are essentially an asset to these clubs and these teams. So you get them hurt, and all of a sudden, boom, you're losing money. I know it sounds shit to say it, but it's a business, right? So yeah, it's ridiculous. There's really no reason against, like, there's no excuse. Like, there's none. And they fucked up big time not doing anything. And the fact that Gostisbehere got a 2 game and Tom Wilson isn't going to get a single game off, like, man, players are just going to start taking things into their own hands, and that's when people are really going to start getting hurt.
Well,
I was going to say the exact same thing. Players are just going to start doing their own stuff. They're not going to give a shit, and then you're going to really have the owners pissed off because, like you said, you made some really good points that I was going to say as well. It sucks, but the business, it does revolve around money, and as soon as that starts getting affected, then you're going to really see some changes, and that's what's really shitty. Is that's what's going to be the forefront of this change, in my opinion. So
yeah.
Well, and on top of that, dude, like, John Scott said it. I think he tweeted it, like, a 2-minute video talking about it, and he was basically saying, like, I'm speechless. Like, I don't understand how this isn't a suspension of any sort. And essentially what he's saying is, look, like, Tom Wilson crossed a line there. By not suspending him, the NHL has effectively moved that line. So now, if you're like a fourth liner, or someone like John Scott that's playing in the NHL today, he's saying, look, like, you're taking liberties now. You're throwing sucker punches.
Yep.
You're doing everything, because what you do can't possibly be more egregious than what Tom Wilson did.
Right.
And on top of that, I mean, the whole idea in the NHL around, you kind of have to pay your dues by fighting, right? And we saw it with Alex Edler playing the Leafs a couple nights ago, right? Took out Zach Hyman, got a 2-game sussy for it. First game back against the Leafs, first shift, Wayne Simmons goes out, drops the gloves, and Alex Edler had to answer the bell. Not a fighter, kind of just turtled. But, he had to fight. The problem is, someone like Tom Wilson, there's probably 2 or 3 people in the league that can legit beat him in a fight. So, especially against the New York Rangers, who don't really have anyone like that,
Tony
he
D'Angelo.
he probably sees that fight as a bonus round.
Yeah.
It's not like, shit, I have to fight. It's like, nice, I also get to beat the shit out of somebody. So that kind of like self-policing is irrelevant in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially to see him in the penalty box trying to be like some macho man. Like, sit down, buddy. You obviously haven't learned anything from your previous 8 suspension. I don't actually know. It's probably like 5 suspensions, but he's probably been suspended for half a season. I kid you not. Like, it's probably been up there.
Yeah, he had a 25-game one at one point.
Yeah, and it just seems to me like the NHL is just waiting for that Todd Bertuzzi Moore situation again, where it was one punch in the back of the head, and look what it led to. I don't know. I just think something like Tom Wilson is gonna seriously fuck someone up, and the NHL is then gonna go, oh yeah, all right, maybe we should do something about it now. But that's always too late, so.
Well, like you make a good point too. Like when was it? It's been a couple seasons now that the NHL banned like you're not allowed to take your helmet off before a fight, right?
Yeah.
Because what was considered the most dangerous part of um fighting was if you fall without your helmet and hit your head off the ice, right? That's exactly what could have happened with Panarin. The fact that he came away relatively unscathed from the incident is kind of like just super lucky, right? Like that could have been so much worse.
Yeah, I think, not to interrupt you, but I think everyone, well, most people that have been to a bar have all been a part or have seen a bar fight. And the way Tom Wilson threw Panarin down on the ground was almost like that pick him up, throw him over your shoulders, and just drop him as hard as you can kind of, throw down. And being on ice and everything, like he's just wired like he wants to hurt these people. And it's just, you could just tell with the anger, like something set him off from a nothing play into that. And look, what we're talking about it for how long now, and everyone's been talking about it. So
Yeah.
And another interesting point, this is something I actually didn't know. But Matt Cook, obviously he had 3 or 4 like really bad plays. A couple bad hits, stepped on Carlson's Achilles, which was just sickening. But supposedly at some point during that, he was sat down by Mario Lemieux, who we actually are going to talk about later, and whoever the GM was at the time. And they were basically like, look, buddy, you got to clean up your act. Like, this is not healthy. You got to get in the right mind state. Like you can't be going out looking to injure people like this. Right. And that's at least like, okay, from the organization, look, like, tone it down. You gotta figure your shit out. You look at what the Capitals have said about Wilson, oh, yeah, it's all Laviolette. All I saw was a scrum that you see 30 times a game. Lars Eller came out and said, oh, people are only upset because there's a stigma around Tom Wilson. It's like, no shit, there's a stigma around him, buddy. Have you seen how many people he's taken out for like half a season more, The fact that he hasn't like ended careers yet is simply a matter of luck, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Tough to see. And I mean, he'll be there. He'll be there for the first round of the playoffs. He's playing tonight against the Rangers, so that's going to be an interesting one to see. I'm not sure if the Rangers called anyone up for this, but I would be willing to bet there'll be a few fights tonight.
Oh, for sure.
The over on penalty minutes, baby.
The game's about to start too. 7:00 start.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I just think, to end off, and we can go on to the next subject, I just think it's like George Peros was a part of that time when Scott Stevens was around and all these guys just laying motherfuckers out and just killing them, like actually killing them. Like, and like, if anyone remembers seeing the Paul Kariya hit, Paul Kariya was back later in that game. It's like, buddy, you're not all right. Like, this is long lasting effects on these players. And it really sucks to see that the NHL just doesn't seem to care about these guys. So, I mean, that's just the biggest thing for me.
I remember watching that game live and getting chills when he came back on the ice, 1-on-1 against Scott Stevens, rips it top ched.
Oh yeah.
Since then, I've heard he doesn't even remember playing the third period of that game.
Yeah, I watched that interview where he's like, I don't remember anything before the hit or after the hit. Sorry.
So, I mean, luckily, like Panarin's out the season. I think it's probably a leg injury from how he fell backwards. Luckily, not his head, but could have been so much worse. And I mean, you see from Tom Wilson, there's obviously no remorse there. And I'd just be worried, like, man, I wouldn't, like, players probably don't feel safe with him on the ice, which is, if you're on his team, like a lot of people have said, GMs around the league, anybody would take him. And like, yeah, it's true, because he's not getting suspended. If he gets suspended for 45 games, suddenly paying him $5.5 million or whatever he's making doesn't look quite as good.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah. Sitting out half the time.
Yeah. And we should touch quickly on the the Rangers situation, because this is also wild.
Yeah.
And so James Dolan, who also owns the Knicks and famously has driven them into the ground, fired GM and president today, saying that they underachieved this season. Obviously, they had a bad start to the season. They've been in the last probably 20 games. I'd say they've been one of the better teams in the league.
Yeah.
And even if say they underperformed this year, like their division is insanely difficult. First of all, second of all, you look at the team that the GM has put together between drafting, trading for Panarin, like they've got an unreal team. Most of their players are under 25. Like you just rattle off names. They're all young kids. They're studs like Adam Fox, right? Like Lafreniere, Kakko are starting to get going. It's nuts. So it feels like the GM has actually done a great job. And if anything, you should fire the coach off performance. So real iffy situation going on there.
Yeah, well, dude, the thing that actually is so crazy to me is to think about how was it last season or maybe even before this season started about them saying that the rebuild in New York was going to start happening, and it was like 2 picks later and all of a sudden just boom, fast forward and it's like, wait, this is a team that is like just on the cusp of making the playoffs. They're out now, like they're mathematically eliminated. 4 teams have clinched in that division. But for them to actually be able to speed up the rebuild as fast as they did, like it's like, are you serious? Like, what the fuck? Like, we thought that they were going to be bad for a long time, and they ended up in 2 seasons getting 2 picks of Kakko and Lafreniere, and now it's like they have a solidified second line. They have a really good first line that when Zibanejad pops off, he like just rains goals down. Like there's nobody that can stop that team when they're firing, right? And then you have 2 young goaltenders that are able to keep the crease peaceful. So I don't know. I don't know why they would fire the GM. It's like,
and what's even more nuts is that like this season, Kakko and Laffy are starting to light it up, but they have not had good seasons, you know?
Yeah.
And so are you like, so the fact that they were even close to making the playoffs without that first and second overall picks back-to-back years popping off speaks to how well the GM built the rest of the team, right? And it's like, it must only be up from here. You definitely can't criticize him for picking Lafreniere first overall.
right. Like
Everybody would have picked him first overall.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Kurt's
Hot take.
Snooza.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned this in the previous podcast about how like sometimes that can be your worst thing as a GM is kind of just overshooting like that 1 or 2 years, and then you kind of set the expectations a bit too high when maybe you're not ready to reach that next level and actually compete. Like maybe last year New York shouldn't have made a push at the end, but they just came on like a bat out of hell after that lockdown or the play-ins, right?
Yeah.
Is that where they started like popping off? They were popping off before leading into the coronavirus. I remember because Panarin was snapping, but like I mean they got lucky choosing first overall. I think they should be a better team, but to be honest with you, I said this from the beginning. I think it's a coaching problem. I think they got a decent makeup of a team. I think just the way they play is very loose and like not very disciplined. And like these they are great players, but they almost need to be disciplined where they need to play a team game more than just a solo point. I don't know. That's just how I felt. So
well, and the official statement from the owner was that you underperformed this year, but if you're firing the GM for an underperformance, you must think the actual team is bad.
Right.
Because the GM has nothing to do with what happens once together. You know?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't think anybody could argue that their team on paper is objectively bad. You look at the teams that have clinched in that division. Who are you actually going to knock out there?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
You know? And so, I'm with you, Kurt. I think it's a coaching thing. So, and it goes back, like there's rumors, I don't know who reported it, but someone was saying that the the president and GM had said to people, they had started, like, they tried to distance themselves from the statement the Rangers made, calling for the Peros firing, and that the owner didn't like that, and that's why. And I kind of get that, and it also shows kind of where the league is at in terms of that type of play, and where they stand on the suspensions like that. But I mean, those guys are going to have jobs real quick, because
Yeah.
they obviously were doing a good job, in my opinion.
Yeah, I remember actually, like, when John Davidson, because he was a recent hire. I'm pretty sure he came out of Columbus, or no, St. Louis, sorry. Or yeah, Columbus, right? Yeah. And he had gotten a job offer actually for a head GM spot, either in like Arizona or somewhere where there was a little bit of turmoil, sketchy, like kind of behind the scenes stuff. But he declined it because he thought this job offer with New York, being an up and coming team, was going to be too good to deny, right?
Yeah.
And kind of just sucks for him, like being there what 1.5 years, and then you get let go. And I'm just reading now from Elliot Friedman that there's a line brawl right off the start of the New York Washington game. So I'll have to watch that after, but they definitely getting some fists thrown, and rightfully so.
Yeah. First thing. And I mean, the thing is, man, Washington is like not the team you want to be getting into a line brawl against, especially as New York. Like,
4 fights in the first 50 seconds.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. Like, Chara was on the ice for the opening faceoff. Who the fuck's gonna fight him? You know, they both put out their fourth lines, and then it's just a full on scrap.
Lady Liberty might have a go at Chara.
Yeah. Like, you see
Dude,
George
the only thing comparable.
tweeting at the Rangers saying, "Yo, sign me to a 1 game."
George Larac?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
He would kill someone.
Yeah. And the crazy part is, Tom Wilson wasn't even on the ice off the opening faceoff.
No, he came on after. Yeah.
The other unfortunate thing is that I don't think a single Ranger won the fight that they took off the opening faceoff.
That doesn't surprise me either.
Yeah, like we said before, who's gonna win? So
hey, they need Tony D'Angelo. He's good at starting fights. So,
dude, he's like 4'5". Like,
Yeah,
he's just ripping cheddar, buddy.
You think about which players in the league could actually like intimidate someone like Tom Wilson. You think back that Ryan Reeves hit on him, where Tom Wilson got knocked out for
oh yeah,
concussion, right? And everyone was like, "Oh, like maybe he deserved it. It's a bad hit." Like, I feel like players like Reeves will be targeting him now. There's no two ways about it.
Oh, for sure.
You lose a lot of respect around the league for something like that, because it's clearly something that's completely outside what's necessary in a game of hockey.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at this. I don't recognize half the names on the ice off the opening draw.
Yeah, it's just a big old brawl, buddy.
Yeah. Crazy. But we should move on. And we got the playoff races are mostly tied up now. But one of the interesting ones to watch, and it's in your hometown division, Colton. Minnesota are on a freaking heater right now.
Oh, friggin' rights, bud.
Good. And whoever comes second in that division, I mean, second, third, they're making a push. They could come second still. But that first round, I mean, I said it, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I was like, look, Colorado, I'm still confident they could take Minnesota in the first round. Like, I wouldn't be too worried about it. I'm not so sure anymore, man.
Yeah. I mean, especially with the injuries and stuff going on with Colorado, because since we talked about it a couple episodes ago or last week, I don't know, it's only gotten worse. So, yeah, I think the fight for first place in this division is like going to be the most important out of all the divisions, because, I mean, like you said, you know, playing Minnesota is not that bad, but with how they're playing right now, I don't want to play them. And then same with the Blues. Like, we have some clinching like scenarios for a few teams tonight that we'll go over in a little bit. But yeah, Minnesota right now is like, I'm pretty sure Colorado's up by 1 point with a game in hand or something like that. And Vegas lost last night, so I don't know. It's a mess, but Minnesota's playing really good. I said in the group chat yesterday that second line, man, of Kaprizov, Rask, and
Fiala.
Fiala. Yeah. Oh, buddy.
They're so good.
Dirty. Like
they're
I said all they do is they immediately when you make a mistake, they go down the other way and they score on you. They like you make a bad pass that's in the skates, somebody picks it off and it's in the back of your net. And it's just Kaprizov's so good at that too. He's done it numerous times, which is why he's probably going to win the Calder this year. For whether you like it or not, he's going to. But
yeah, I think he has to.
Or Jason Robertson.
Yeah, true.
I feel like production-wise, they're similar, but I don't think there's any argument that Kaprizov is not the best rookie in the league. Like,
yeah, and he's also like what 24 or something. So
25.
I
mean, that's its own thing, but
yeah.
In regards to that, in regards to Minnesota, I was
game.
watching in regards to a game, I was watching that game from the first period on all the way until the end, and Vegas was dominating that game. They were all over them. Like I'd say probably 80% of the play was in the Minnesota's end, and Vegas just couldn't pot that next one to kind of just put them away, right? Like they were up 5-2 or 5-3 at the time, and Minnesota, they just kept with it. That Kaprizov line, Fiala, and all them just kept coming, and then all of a sudden, 1 goal, 2 goals, and then boom, last minute of the game, scored another one, and they had won the game and just completely stunned Vegas. Like they didn't even know what to do. They got off the ice so fast. Leonard was embarrassed, like he was shook visibly, and they just one of those comebacks that you're like, man, that's a team that might do some good damage in the playoffs. They might just come at you and you don't even know what hit you. So be interesting to watch them, man. I mean, last year we were talking about them being a lottery team for the next 3 years. So Bill Guerin making some good moves, man. Keep it up.
Yeah, man, and that Kaprizov, I mean, that's huge, right? It's a diamond in the rough. Not in the rough, but like, damn, dude. But yeah, and another thing that I mean, we talked about it a couple times, but McDavid and Matthews are just on another level this season. They're lighting up the league. It's honestly so fun to watch. It's crazy to watch because they're like historically good right now. I mean, what we were saying, I think it was 2 episodes ago, can McDavid make it to 100 points? And we were all like, oh yeah. And now it's looking like he will for sure.
100%, yeah.
And it's just nuts, man. And Matthews is on scoring. Like if Matthews hadn't got injured, I genuinely think he would have had 50 goals in 56 games this season.
I wouldn't have been surprised to see him hit that number.
Not at all, dude.
He's dirty. He's got he just can't stop scoring. Any angle, any play, anything, any situation that you get him into, he's just somehow gonna find the back of the net. Like, but he could be, rocking a fat mutter, right? Gets a pass and just somehow pots it. And you're like, buddy, you're in the bathroom. And he's like, I know. Number 45. Like, just rips it. Like, so.
That's what I do, dude.
So, yeah, but Matthews, unbelievable. McDavid, on a whole nother level this season. It goes back to what we said at the very beginning of the season too, eh? Does the division that he's in play a part in his role? Because, or in like, does it play a role in him being able to score this much? Because, like I was saying, I think to Curtis maybe a week ago, I was like watching the Canadian division or the Northern division play compared to the other divisions. It's just there's so much more offense and so many more like crazy tic-tac-toe passes that just look insane. And you're like, how is that guy open? Where you watch something like the Central or you watch the West and you're seeing these teams like Anaheim and LA who just completely are so aggressive on the penalty kill. And it's just like, you look like you can hardly get anything going.
Well, dude, it's interesting you say that. I think in goals per game, the North is actually 3rd in the league out of the 4 divisions.
Really?
The East and the West both have higher goals per game averages. And then, the other argument is, oh, well, the goaltending in the North's worse. The North has one of the bottom 9 goaltenders in the league. You look, if there's teams you're going to beat up on, the 3 teams you beat up on are LA, Anaheim, and Arizona. The teams that have like the West is kind of has the biggest discrepancy between the good teams and the bad.
Right.
And I mean, maybe like so the North objectively is not actually that much higher scoring. I think at a certain point, you just kind of have to acknowledge the North just simply has some absolute studs. And it's been a while since Canadian teams have had those high-end skill, you know, like you go back to the mid 2000s, Crosby and Ovechkin, Malkin go to the Central Division, right? Most of your high-profile players were playing in the U.S. Now, Matthews in Toronto, Marner in Toronto, McDavid and Draisaitl out in Edmonton, they're just nasty. And I think they would be doing this no matter where they are.
Right.
But
also with Matthews, I just like he just reminds me of Heatley. I was gonna say Heater, but where he just puts a puck on net or is just in front of the net and deflects a puck and it just goes in. You're like, all right, Matthews scored again. Danny Heatley, I remember watching him growing up. He was just one of those guys that he put anything on net and it seemed to go in, make it look easy. And Austin Matthews, I think he could shoot a puck behind his back, like spinorama or something, do something nuts, and he'd score it. Like the guy is just on a different level. And man, Toronto could be scary in the playoffs. I hope they're the Final Four team, them or Edmonton, and I hope they do some damage. Bring it home to Canada this year, please.
I mean, we'll get into it our pre-playoff episode, but they might be my pick for the Cup just because it would be the most Leafs thing ever to finally win the Cup when they can't have fans.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Take the pressure off them, eh?
Yeah.
Hopefully by then everyone has their vaccine.
Yeah. And I mean, you remember what it was like in Southern Ontario when the Raptors won? Imagine if the Leafs won.
Oh my God. It would be I think we talked about this. We said it would be like 30 times the size, if not bigger than like if they had a parade in Toronto with the Cup. I think like there'd be a riot. Like,
yeah,
they'd have people traveling from across the country, no doubt.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%, dude.
Yeah.
100%. That's the thing. Leafs fans are everywhere. Like I know people that have lived in Winnipeg for 5-6 years. Leafs fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just not right.
Yeah, it's like a team there. But I mean, so a lot of people are comparing this like McDavid and Matthews' current pace to some of the all-time greats, right? I mean, Lemieux has been the obvious example. Having the comparison in the last kind of 20 years, the points per game average, McDavid and Matthews for points per game and goals per game are right around what Lemieux did in 2000, 2001. So I think they're sitting at McDavid's at 1.75 points per game, just about. Lemieux in that season, 2000, 2001, and I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, but just to put this in context, because I think a lot of people, at least our generation, don't necessarily remember or recognize just how dominant Mario Lemieux was. So I'm going to toss some stats at you boys.
Guy.
Hell yeah, buddy. That 2000-2001 season, he came out of retirement halfway through the season, played 43 games that year at the age of 35 after having been retired for 3 full seasons. 43 games, 35 goals, 76 points. So that's 1.76 goals per game.
That's
McDavid, 24, prime of his career, after 48 games this year, 28 goals, 84 points, 1.75 goals per game. Average goals per team in that 2000-2001 season was 2.76. In 2020-2021 this year, it's 2.93 goals per team. So there's actually more goal scoring happening now than there was then. And Lemieux just casually comes out of retirement as a 35-year-old and puts up 76 points in 43 games. It's absolutely obscene. And dive a little bit deeper into it. First of all, Mario Lemieux took one more game than Wayne Gretzky to score 600 career goals, which is insane. Don't hear that talked about very much.
Yeah, wow.
When he retired in 1997. He's the first player ever to retire with more than 2 points per game average. Also insane. And you got to remember, during that time, he missed half a season because he was getting chemotherapy for cancer treatments. Came back, dominated. And then coming out of retirement, dude, just an absolute monster. Like, how you could go 3 years. Like, imagine someone now going 3 years not in the league and then just rolling up, averaging 2 points a game still, or like almost 2 points a game still. It's completely unfathomable. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's numbers that like we're not even used to seeing. Like, well, and now McDavid is the new age of that, of like, he's the definition of goal scoring and points and having these insane seasons. And it's, I don't know, like kind of like and I know this is kind of sad, but kind of similar to how it was with like Erik Karlsson. You never know when the season that you're having is going to be your best, you know?
Yeah, it's true.
So this might be the most dominant we ever see McDavid play, but I doubt it, obviously, you know.
Seems like scaling up.
Yeah. Like, it's every single year it just keeps going up, and it's like, come on. Chill, yeah.
Need to nights it, fam. Yeah, Lemieux is, I like, man, I say like a lot, but Lemieux and Yager and Kovalev, I'm pretty sure they were all on the team at one point. I just remember my dad talking about that, and like Kovalev being a lazy player, and yeah, he is. He'd show up when he wanted to play. Yager, he was pretty good and consistent. Lemieux always showed up to play, from what I remember watching, and he was kind of the driving factor of those cups that they had won. Like, that was the big factor of why Pittsburgh is the team where it is now. Mario Lemieux single-handedly built that team up, in my opinion, and kind of made them one of those teams that you think of being the top 10 most popular teams in the NHL. And I mean, he's the owner now, so we've talked about it in previous. I think he'll have a lot to do with Crosby's future, but the guy's a beauty. So
yeah, unreal, dude. I mean, you look at some of these seasons, like 69 goals, 92 assists, and if he could have stayed healthy, man, if he could have, yeah, nice. Freaking crazy. Like,
Yeah.
he got one of the things too is, like, this is a guy that played his entire career for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he got standing ovations in the Philadelphia Flyers arena on multiple occasions.
oh yeah,
That just doesn't happen to anyone.
Yeah, like nobody.
So that just goes to show, but absolute stud. And I mean, that's nothing to take away from what Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid are doing right now, because holy shit, dude, so much fun. Just one last stat here. In terms of percentage of your team's total points, McDavid this season is 91 points. Edmonton scored 163 goals. So that's 55, almost 56% of their team's total goals. In the 88-89 season, Lemieux had 199 points, and that was out of 336 goals that Pittsburgh scored that year, which is almost 60%.
That is insane.
199 points.
That is very similar to like how McDavid is part of how McDavid and Draisaitl are on the ice for like a certain percentage of Edmonton's shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, and then like, yeah, as you said, with those later teams, you add Kovalev, you add Yager to that. God damn.
Yeah, you just
with Lemieux, McDavid, Crosby, they're kind of those guys that really bring in the culture to hockey on why you love the game, and everyone can admire, no matter the team, opposing teams, and every, like, even rivalries aside, you got to love when you see hockey like that, when you're watching one of the greats play in front of your own eyes. McDavid being one of those guys that you're going to tell your kids about this guy, and they're not going to have the same appreciation that we have watching them. But thank God for YouTube. So
yeah,
I'll be showing the top, like maybe 1,000 plays McDavid makes at the end of his career, hopefully. Like, I don't know how many you'll have because it seems like every point he puts up is a highlight reel. So,
Well, and it goes a little bit back, like not to harp on it, but the Tom Wilson thing, like this game, there's been a fight, like literally for the first 7 minutes of the game. I think there's a fight on every shift.
Nice.
And like maybe some people like watching that. That, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't think that's why most people tune in to watch hockey. The most exciting hockey to watch is when you have those star players able to play like star players, like the Lemieux, like the McDavids, right? And you do have to protect them to a certain extent. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
It's I don't know what, like, from the NHL's perspective, I don't know where.
Yeah, where do they stand on this? It seems like they just haven't said anything on the subject.
Yeah, so that's going to be something to track, but we
Yeah.
got to move on. Shall we hop over to the Twitter question? We usually do it at the beginning or the end, but might rip it mid-epi this time, eh?
Yeah, let's do it. Knock it.
So we've got Mark coming in again.
Woo!
Deserves a t-shirt.
Pond merch coming soon, baby.
Oh, baby. But yeah, talking about Darnell Nurse, 16 goals plus
rates, bud.
plus 29. I mean, this is a guy that definitely helped out my fantasy team to a championship, by the way. But dude, unreal player, and I think he's probably exceeded expectations for where people saw him going. And him, not only him, but that decor in Edmonton, they were young a couple years ago. They're still kind of young, but they're turning into a legit force there. I mean, Clefbaum hasn't played all season this year, didn't play much last year. If he can come back healthy, Ethan Bear looks like he's progressing pretty well. They got Kulikov at the deadline, Tyson Barrie in there. I don't know, maybe he's only on a 1 year, but they'll likely try to find him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty scary decor. Maybe, and like Nurse, Clefbaum, like obviously not right now, but Nurse adds that grit. He'll fight, he'll hit, he can PK, he can play power play time, solid defensively, good in the O-zone. Hard to find a weakness in his game, really.
Yeah, I was going to say also Tyson Barrie is having a really good year compared to last year when he was on Toronto, just having a stinker. And Colorado obviously had won that trade at that point. Up until now, I think they still definitely won that trade because Kadri's provided something that they really have benefited off having. But Tyson Barrie, to me, last year seemed like he was kind of like on his way out if he was going to keep playing like this. Like the hype of him, his name and everything, it kind of faded. And this year, man, he's lighting it up. He's having a real good year and just proves that when you're on, you're on. And if you find a team, sometimes it's not about the money. It's about the longevity of extending your career, right? Like,
Totally.
if you could play on a great team and put up 0 points and be out of the league in 2 years, or you could put up 30 points a year as a defenseman and be in the league for 20 years. So
yeah,
I think that's a great pickup for Edmonton. Yeah.
Playing too, eh?
Oh yeah. And Darnell Nurse, man, like just some dirty OT winners this year. I'm pretty sure he's had a couple or maybe not OT winners, but he's had some just disgusting snipes where he looks like a forward, like yucky.
Yeah, some ripsies.
And I mean, obviously, you would get a bit of an advantage getting to play with. Probably spends a lot of his time on the ice with McDavid or Draisaitl, right? But this is a guy that logs a lot of minutes. He's not getting protected by only playing power play or he's their guy in the defensive zone as well. So good all around player, and I feel like he's still growing, right? Like he'll not physically growing, but his game will get better still. He's not old yet by any means. I think he's 24, 25, like
yeah.
But he's got a long career ahead of him still.
Oh yeah. What was the original question?
How good is this guy gonna be?
True. Okay. I didn't know because we just started talking about him. I didn't know if there was like a legitimate question or if Mark was just like, "Hey guys, Darnell Nurse," and that was it. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So, but yeah, no, he's been solid. I think you guys covered it pretty good. Can't really.
I feel like some of these players are just I'm kind of lost for words, but it almost takes a little bit of time for them to truly blossom into the player that they're going to become, like goalies, where everyone kind of, it's like a norm now that everyone knows that goalies are kind of middle of their career blossoms where they really go into their peak, where some players would, that'll be their peak, right? Like 24, 25, 26, that'll be mid form, elite skill. They're still going to have good years after that, but for goalies, that's somewhere you get really good or you start coming into the league for a lot of them. I feel like Darnell Nurse is going to put up some good numbers when Edmonton actually truly becomes that number one team consistently and not just in and out of a playoff spot every other year. So I like it. I think they're going to have a good future, man. I think we said this before. Ken Holland's got them going. I really, really like how Edmonton's shaping up this year too. Even though it's in the Canadian division, I hope they do some damage.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting once we get to that Final Four. I mean, you know, none of the Canadian teams are really getting that much respect in terms of being able to win in the playoffs. And they're not going to have, no matter who they match up against at that point, it's not going to be easy. But even if the Canadian division, whoever comes out, wins that one series, gets to the Cup final, first of all, will be insanely hype for Canada. But second of all, will prove a lot of people wrong because a lot of people think it's the weakest division by a long shot. So it's gonna be a fun one to watch, and we'll be rooting for whoever gets out because fuck, Canadian team in the Cup final, been too long.
Oh, friggin' rights, bud.
Except for if Colorado meets them, then fuck them.
Ottawa make a late season run.
Yeah, why not? Why not Ottawa? You know,
yeah. Dude, hey, maybe next year.
But boys, speaking of Calgary,
well, no, dude, we're getting into an expansion season. I mean, we're almost there, right? Teams getting eliminated from the playoffs. They're starting to think about next year and whatnot. And we've got some news from Seattle. I mean, first of all, I guess they still had like a payment to make or something. So they are now officially the 32nd team in the NHL.
Oh, friggin' rights, bud.
Yep, stick taps to them for that. And it's going to be exciting. I mean, we're starting to see some moves. And one big one, well, maybe not huge, but Milan Lucic saying he's waiving his no trade clause, so he won't have to be protected by Calgary. Obviously, they still can protect him if they want, but they can leave him unprotected, which is no trade clause would otherwise have forced them to protect him. So huge advantage to Calgary because, you know, you get to protect one more other guy. And I was saying to you guys, like, I don't know if I'm Seattle. I don't even know if I'm taking Lucic. Like, Colton, you said you thought he'd be a good bottom six. Maybe you're right. What do you think, Kurt?
I think Lucic has definitely had a better year this year in terms of his play. Like he's looked a little bit better, but he still seems to be, to me, in my eyes, that guy that's kind of been lost in the transition of speed and how the game is being played now, where I think Karlsson might have, in the same way Karlsson might have lost a step, right? In how his injuries has hindered his skating. Yeah. Skating is such a big thing in today's game, and the transition game is so fast. And I couldn't imagine being on the ice and playing with these guys and having to think at the same time too of what your next move is going to be. And someone who Milan Lucic is like a fighter. I don't know. Like, I'm honestly rooting for Milan to be the next head of what's it called? Player safety. Because he might have some fucking better opinions than this guy, Peros.
Yikes, dude. And yeah, Colton, what do you think on that? If you're Seattle, you take him?
I don't know. It would obviously depend on who else is on the table, right? But I would say if it boils down to it and you need a little bit of grit to your team and a little bit of veteran presence and I mean, every once in a while he scores. Like, there's a lot of goons that are on, well, not goons. I shouldn't say goons. That's a bad term for it. But a lot of guys that play a really physical, gritty style of hockey that, you know, they're not really contributing anything else other than having that physical presence and sticking up for guys. So, I mean, you know, for a bottom six role, I feel like he offers some value. Got a steep contract, though. Didn't you say it was like 5.5 or something like that?
I actually have no idea. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I don't know.
Better than you probably would want to be paying him, but again, with those expansion teams, they might just be trying to hit the cap floor.
Right.
Like they're not like to be like worried about cap space in their first season.
Oh yeah, exactly, right. And most of the time for expansion drafts, the people that are being left unprotected are not guys that have massive contracts, unless it's like, somebody like Sergei Bobrovsky, where it's like, the option's always there and you're going to get a good guy, but realistically it's not like, if you don't choose them in the expansion draft, it's not the end of the world. Like, what are the chances that sorry, go ahead. What was that?
5.2 cap hit.
Yeah. Okay. So not bad, not terrible, but
no,
yeah.
I mean, my original thought was, fuck no, I wouldn't take him, but you mentioned the bottom six, and it kind of convinced me. I mean, the more you think about it, I mean, you look at what's going on with Washington, New York. It's like, damn, they probably want a Milan Lucic right about now.
Oh yeah.
And I think maybe at one point in his career, he did have the ability to produce offensively and kind of play. That's not his game anymore. Obviously the league has changed. He's not the fastest, doesn't have the quickest feet. But he can play a heavy style of hockey, and that's still valuable. And I don't know, man, like maybe it's kind of not doing him any favors when teams are signing him and putting them like on their top line, right? Like, oh, he played with McDavid, how could he possibly not score a bunch of goals or whatever, right? And it's like, well, McDavid could probably skate up and down the ice 3 times by the time Lucic gets from one end to the other.
Right.
Maybe that just doesn't make sense. Maybe limit his ice time a little bit. And yeah, sure, it probably hurts to have a 5.2 million player playing on your third or fourth line, but if you can afford to do so as an expansion team, why the hell not?
Right.
So, it'll be interesting to see whether Calgary values him enough to protect him. Because we'll have to go through all the teams, and that'll be a hell of an episode. But because like I'm trying to think who Calgary protects, they don't really have a ton of guys that I can think of that are automatically protected, like on entry levels and stuff like that. So
yeah.
Thinking about it now, maybe Lucic is thinking, hey, if I get picked up by Seattle, maybe they'll buy me out, or maybe and then he can choose the team that he really wants to go play for like what Pat Maroon did with Tampa Bay, 1 mil 1 year, win a cup, and he can decide where he wants to go and still get paid out his money, or he knows that he's not going to get picked up and he can still help his team in that expansion draft. So it'll be, like you said, it will be very interesting how it all plays out the second time, knowing that these GMs recently have been through one already. I feel like Seattle might not get as nice of as favorable of a hand or team that Vegas did, but obviously that'll be for a different episode that we'll talk about that more in depth. But
yeah, because there's a couple teams where you're looking at them expansion draft wise, and it's like, shit, like they're going to be losing some good players. But yeah, as you said, GMs will be familiar with the format and kind of how to navigate the expansion draft. So it'll be interesting to see. And I mean, from a player's perspective, I think there are obviously cases where you want to stick with the team that you're with if you're breaking into the league, something like that. But I mean, you see what Vegas has done and how great their fan base has been. And it's kind of revitalized a lot of those guys' careers, right? Like someone like William Karlsson, like popped off, right? Maybe that doesn't happen if he's not in Vegas, right? So if you're someone late career, you're thinking maybe this revitalizes me. I can kind of find a new role in a new team and have things to offer that aren't necessarily my production on the ice. So it's going to be exciting to see for sure. And we'll have to do a doozy episode of like a mock expansion draft or some shit.
Yeah, we'll get it done for sure.
Yeah. And should we go through the clinching scenarios for tonight? Because
we
got a couple. It's getting down to crunch time, baby.
Yeah, so I got them right here. So for tonight's games, there's a few that are actually on right now, I think. So the Nashville Predators will clinch a playoff berth if they defeat the Blue Jackets in any fashion, and the Lightning defeat the Stars in regulation. So obviously all this stuff is it has to be these exact scenarios in order for them to move on and clinch. So some of them are pretty specific. I was looking for the word there and I found it, little SP, specky. And then so the St. Louis Blues will clinch a playoff berth if they defeat the Ducks in any fashion and the Coyotes beat the Kings. So I mean, if you're a Blues fan, you're kind of cheering for the Yotes tonight as well. And then the last one, the Winnipeg Jets will clinch a playoff berth if they defeat the Flames in regulation. They don't depend on any other team to have an out or a good result. So so Jets could be taking that second spot in the North and leaving 2 left, which would be, or wait, no, is it?
They'll be third.
Third. Thank you. Yeah. So,
and I mean, couple notes here. First of all, I think even if they don't clinch tonight, I think there's no chance that Calgary or Vancouver catch Montreal in the North. But Winnipeg, man, fallen off a cliff. They've lost 7 in a row, 8 of their last 10. Ehlers going down has obviously been a huge part of that, but it feels like the wheels have fallen off, right? Like you had that Scheifele getting benched, Hellebuck not playing well. It seems like a perfect storm at the exact wrong time, dude.
Yeah. It's just kind of how this season has gone, and the ups and downs of seasons. It's just going to be on the shortened season we talked about before, how fast these teams need to correct. And this is one of those times you do not, there's a little bit of break in between the regular season and the playoffs, but you got to fix your stuff like ASAP, because if you go into the playoffs like limping in, I can guarantee you that it's not going to be easy hockey getting out there. And like most of these teams that are in these divisions and have already clinched know who they're playing in the first round. So it's like you better be able to give your A game all the way up until the end of the season, or you're coming in and you're going to get blown up like the Rangers did last year in the play-ins. We thought they were going to do awesome because they did so well, and then just that out the door. So anything can happen, I guess. So, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing, and I just noticed this the other day. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I was pretty convinced Dallas was going to sneak in here. They're on a bit of a slide as well. I got to give a shout out to Tyler Seguin, finally back in the lineup.
Yep.
Was someone wrote a really nice article about it. Apparently he lost like his entire quad on the side of the leg that he got the hip surgery on. So a big amount of rehab going in there to get him back to fitness during the season. So kudos to him. Great to see him back.
And he scored in his first game back.
Yeah. So they're 4 points behind Nashville. They got 1 game in hand on them, but they've lost 4 in a row. But this is freaking crazy, dude. Dallas has lost 14 games in overtime or a shootout.
Wow.
14. There are only 2 other teams that have lost more than 7, and it's Detroit, who's lost 9 in OT, and Columbus, who's lost 12.
Damn.
So you think about that, 14 games, that's 14 single points. If they win half of those games, they've already clinched a playoff spot, pretty much.
Yeah. So it's obviously been an issue, I guess, eh?
Nuts. And I don't know how many of those are in a shootout and how many of those are just in overtime, but man, that's so tough because you're that close. And then especially when you're only playing within the division, not only are you only getting 1 point, you're giving the other team 2 points. So it's like a half-point difference kind of thing. So tough for Dallas if they don't make it with that many OT losses. Like that's got to hurt because they've lost 5 fewer games in regulation than Nashville has. They've only lost 3 more in regulation than Tampa Bay and Florida, but they have like 8 less wins than Nashville and 14 less wins than Florida and Tampa, just because all of their games going to OT and then losing all of them, just awful, man. So they're gonna be kicking themselves if they miss out on the playoffs by a point or 2, because dude, like literally like 1 shot in the shootout 2 times in a season difference here.
Yeah, it's one play can be the difference every single game for clinching or not clinching, and they're looking like they actually might not make it. So
Yeah, they need Cole Caulfield, baby.
yeah. Holy fuck, buddy. Speaking of
That's
that,
Yeah, crazy stat. He has more regular season OT goals than Wayne Gretzky,
Wayne Gretzky.
or the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what like Wayne Gretzky probably never went to overtime because he'd fucking win the game in like the first period for his team.
It just occurred to me, but I imagine most of his career they had ties.
Right.
Oh yeah, you're right. I completely forgot about that. Nice job, Mike.
Yeah.
I think they still played. Did they not still play overtime and then end in a tie? I'm not actually sure. I think.
Yeah, they had
Yeah,
overtime,
yeah.
and then it would
No shootouts at that point because I think the first shootout was like 1993 or something.
Yeah.
Or 94, 95.
Well, the modern shootout has only been like since it's been recent, I think.
2007 or
Yeah,
something.
I'm pretty sure the Sens. Yeah, I talk about Sens a lot. I'm pretty sure Daniel Alfredson scored the first shootout goal or the first shootout winner. So somewhere in his career. So
Huh. Wayne Gretzky.
That's a pretty wide range, though. He played.
Yeah. Krusty the Clown.
Yeah, Caulfield 2 OT winners already. First career goal in OT.
Both rips.
Dude, this guy's gonna be so fun to watch. Like that generation, him, Zegras, Jack Hughes, even gonna be studs, dude.
Yeah. Oh, and both of I'm pretty sure both goals were absolute like just ding, like the fucking hockey ASMR. Like that's the type of shit that gets me going at night. When I fall into my REM sleep, when I'm deep in there, that's what I just hear the post hits, bing, and then into the back of the net.
You know who he reminds me of? Cole Caulfield. Everyone else kind of like a normal sailboat, mono hull, just normal. Like everyone's seen a normal sailboat, hopefully. Cole Caulfield, the way he skates reminds me of like a catamaran, like just gliding on the water. Like he's so low, his legs are very spread out, and that's got to be deceptive. Like I'm not a goalie or anything, but just the way you shoot, like he's sitting down there and you're like, this guy's not going to shoot like this. And then all of a sudden, just boom, shoots one.
Yeah, rip.
And I wasn't a hater on him, but I just didn't think that all the hype for Cole Caulfield was there. I'm on the hype train now, man. Like this kid, 2 OT winners, one against the Sens, one against, who was it, Toronto?
Yep.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. This kid's looking dangerous, man, for a small guy. You see Braden Point, the Brinkat putting up numbers. Hopefully this guy can do the same because that'll be pretty fun to watch. So,
yeah, I was seeing a stat the other night watching the Carolina game. It's like players under 23. DeBrincat's like 4th in goals.
Damn.
Like way the hell ahead of Matthew Tkachuk. I think he's only behind Aho, Matthews, and one other person. I think I forget who else.
Pretty elite.
Pasternak.
Maybe. I don't know if Pasternak's under 23 now, though.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
He's like 27.
But talking about other studs, and I mean, it's almost a weekly thing at this point, boys, but bed guy update coming hot.
Oh, buddy.
Canada playing in the semifinals of the U18s. Obviously, they started the tournament with a absolute blowout of Sweden 12-1. They followed that up. They only beat Latvia 4-2, which we were talking about.
Goalies, man.
Yeah. But so Canada met Sweden again in the semifinals today. So obviously Sweden's a decent team, made it to the semifinals after that. They just beat them 8-1. Bed guy with a hat trick. So Bed guy scored 3. Shane Wright scored 1. A couple other guys scored, obviously, but damn, dude, what a wagon of a team. I'm so excited. When those guys are at the World Juniors, that's gonna be fun as hell.
Oh, we're gonna have to just chuck back the beers like they're scoring goals. You know what I'm saying? The U18 drinking or the World Junior drinking game. That's kind of
deadly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Every time Bedard scores, take a shot. Oh my god.
Yeah. Okay.
He's just putting these teams to sleep.
Yeah. And I don't know. We're getting there a little up there in time, but I got to give you guys a quick update on this Rangers Capitals game.
Yep.
First period just ended. penalty minutes, 44 penalty minutes for the Caps, 56 for the Rangers. For
Damn.
a total of 110 penalty minutes in the first period.
Oh
Still
my.
tied
Pissed
to
would you be if you had fantasy hockey right now and you were playing against Tom Wilson or anyone on the Capitals team? You just lose that category already.
It literally looked like there were more people in the penalty box than there were on the benches.
Yeah, that's nuts. We knew this was coming though.
It makes me think though, like, obviously you're not going to get to Tom Wilson by like fighting him. At what point are people going to start just taking runs at him? And you like, obviously you don't want to see that no matter who it is that's getting hit, but I feel like at a certain point there's going to be like one or two guys on each team that just looking to line him up. And because that seems like that if the league's not going to step in and suspend him, if you can't really get the better of him in a fight, there's really only one other option, right? So
Yeah.
other than beating them, and the Caps are just good, so you're not exactly gonna beat them results wise.
Yeah. On most nights anyways. But
Yeah.
All right, well, boys, we're getting up there on the time skis, so looks like we'll sign off for next week. Guys, quick reminder, follow us on our socials. We got Twitter at the Pond Pod and Instagram at the Pond Hockey Pod, and then you can also find us on YouTube. Last week's episode with Steve, which was just another juicy banger episode. I'm still buzzing from it. It's up there with the video of like the Zoom call with Steve, so it's actually you know what, I've probably listened to that episode myself like 3 times, and I still watched the whole YouTube video after, just because I was like, you know what, it's even better watching it, like having, you know, all of us there and everything. Like, I don't know, sometimes I just like watching myself. It's weird, but anyways, guys, so
And just to say, Kurt doesn't have his webcam going yet, but peep the YouTube for a special content pic of special someone named Daryl.
yeah.
Daryl.
Daryl says hi, by the way.
Daryl, Sal, you know, there's a couple of guys that I know, you know.
Yeah, but yeah, we're gonna get Curtis set up with a little cam for next week, so the vids will have all of us in it. And then yeah, guys, we got some pretty exciting stuff coming up interview wise for a couple different people. So yeah, a lot of juicy stuff coming in as we end off spring and hopefully get into summertime and be able to golf again. That would be really nice. But yeah,
Close to the playoffs, baby. I'm so excited.
yeah, this is exciting hockey, guys. Watch the end of the season and you know, start getting your picks together, your bets, and we'll help you out with a little bit of parlays going into the playoffs and stuff. So yeah, so if you guys have made it this far, thank you so much for listening once again, and come back to the pond real soon. We'll catch you next week. Yeah, peace, guys. Peace.
What up?
Peace, guys.